begin with the Gayatri mantra, Malti.
Right. Om Bhur-Bhuvah-Svah Tatsavitur-Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodaya. Om Bhur-Bhuvah-Svah Tatsavitur-Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodaya. Om Bhur-Bhuvah-Svah Tatsavitur-Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Asato ma Satgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityoma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, Malti. We now
Welcome.
have the Zoroastrian prayer by Freni.
Thank you, ma. Shri Pak Dadar Auramazdani Madad Hojoji. Borje Kore Abajiad. Pak Afshun Shahe Faridun. Wapak Beram Yazat Panabad. Ham Jartosh Ti Madadgar. Ham Papi Negedar. Afshun Shahe Faridun. Wapak Beram Yazat Madadgar. Yatha Ahu Vairyo. Yatha Ratush. Chachit Hacha. Bange Ush. Dasvau Maningo. Shaute Nanam. Angyus Mazdai. Shatrem Chai. Ahurai. Aim Drigobyo Dadatavastara.
They maybe sometimes they talk with the mic far away.
Yeah.
Sometimes they
Thank you,
transmission.
Freni. There's someone talking right now. Kindly mute them.
Yeah.
Everyone, Malti,
I have
kindly
muted.
mute everyone.
Yes.
Okay. And now we have the Christian prayer by Deepti.
Arre, I haven't finished.
Oh, I'm sorry, Freni. Okay, there was that song. Carry on. Yes, yes. I'm so sorry.
Yatha ahuveryo, yatha ratush, ashachit hacha, bange us, dazdau maningo, shaute nanam, angyus mazdai, shatrem chai, ahurai, aim, drigobyo dadatavastarahem, ashem vahu, vaistam vasti, Usta asti, usta ahmai, yadeshai, vahishtai Hashem. Sarosh yazadni panaho joji. Thank you.
Thank you, Freni. We now have the Christian prayer by Deepti. Deepti, please unmute yourself. Okay, Ramesh, will you do that prayer, please? Deepti is unable to unmute. Ramesh, Christian prayer.
Yes, I just unmuted myself. It was difficult, actually. It wasn't allowing me to. Okay. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Ramesh. Gulu is not here for the Sikh prayer. Is there anyone else who would like to say a prayer? Anyone? Okay. Now we will move on to the introduction of our speaker. I request Malati to kindly introduce our speaker.
I think Janki Ram would do a better job for that. Is it okay if he takes over?
Yes, yes.
Good
Mr.
evening.
Yes.
Ashvini Rao is a very multifaceted, multidimensional personality. And as Sajani mentioned, she has served in a public sector bank for 27 years. After that, she went to USA to learn art and painting. And she studied in Oklahoma. And then after coming back, she got interested in teaching children with learning disabilities. So she has got trained with Brindavan Education Trust, and she has been doing a very noble work. So we are very happy to have Ashvini Rao, who actually spends her time between USA and India. So apart from learning disabilities, at the end she can also share how she manages the disabilities caused by the COVID, particularly for travel. So with that, I hand over to Sajani.
Thank you so much, Mr. Janaki Ram. And now it's over to our speaker, Ashwini. Please take over.
Okay. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you, Sajani, and also the Ancient School of Wisdom for giving me this opportunity, for inviting me to this platform to share my knowledge about learning disabilities in children. While I was browsing through your website of the Ancient School of Wisdom, I came across your philosophy that says we are committed to helping individuals on their journey of self-discovery through learning and awareness, eventually leading to a life of fullness of being. The same thing applies to us because we, the teachers in general, have the same philosophy towards the children that is working towards their well-being and trying to give them a holistic approach to life. You already know about my journey, but I would like to tell you briefly about my journey into special education. I did my bachelor's degree in education, and I always wanted to be a teacher. But you know, somewhere along the way, I joined the bank, and I was there for 27 years. But I always considered myself to be an accidental banker. I had two desires in my life. That is, one is to teach and one is to paint. So when I got the opportunity, I retired from the bank and went off to US. I learned art at the University of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and that was in painting and other things. And after returning to India, I joined Brindavan Education Trust as an art teacher and also taught history. So when I say art teacher, I had to teach art history and painting to the students of 10th and 12th grade. So history was also a part of it. My introduction to learning disability was only after joining Brindavan, which is a school for children with special needs. Before joining here, I did teach in another school, but my ability to understand learning disability was very minimal. I really did not understand too much. So it was only after joining Brindavan I could do it. I mean, I was able to help out. So initially, I found it a little difficult because I was not aware of the children's difficulties, especially with their emotional and behavioral problems. I had to overcome my anxiety about dealing with special needs children, and especially the challenging high levels of behavior, and also learn the special teaching methods. At the same time, I was also doing my diploma course in specific learning disability. So it was a double whammy for me, of course, but I was able to overcome my problems and I had a successful career at Brindavan. At this point, I would like to tell you briefly about the work that is done here at Brindavan. We have children coming to us from the age of 7 years to about 18 years. Sometimes they're there till even up to 22 years. We do a lot of academic teaching and also holistic development in the sense even the emotional development. Then we run remedial classes for after school students. That is, we get students from other places who are not able to cope up with academics, so they come to us. And we have many resource rooms in many mainstream schools to help children with learning difficulties. Here, we also follow a particular board known as National Institute of Open School or NIOS, because this particular board helps our children. They give us a lot of accommodations, and our children are unable to pass their 10th or 12th without the accommodations that are given to them. So accommodation can be, like they get extra time to finish their exams, or they're allowed to take just 5 subjects out of the usual syllabus that they have. And there are other things also, so I won't go into it. So once the student finishes the 10th or 12th standard, they get integrated into the mainstream school college for further education. But at our school, we try and help these students to finish the school and join the degree classes at college level. But of course, many of them drop out or they find other source of employment and they discontinue their studies. We also have students who have passed from prestigious institutes like Delhi School of Economics, London School of Economics, the National Institute of Design, internationally acclaimed culinary schools. So it is not only, with their disabilities, they're even able to go to this level. So we are very proud of these kids, and not only these children, of all, because, disability is a huge thing for them. So we are very proud to see our students doing so well, not only in academics, but in getting integrated into the society, which we try to do. This is a huge thing, and we always aim to get them integrated into society, finding jobs, and getting on with their lives. So when they come back to see us at the school, we feel very proud of them, and it's also a very humbling feeling to see that they have gotten into the society or become an integrated part of the society where they belong. That is our lifelong goal, to make them to get them adjusted into society and to their well-being. Here, I would also like to add a note on inclusion. So many of you may not be aware of this term inclusion, but nowadays, it's gaining a lot of importance. So what does inclusion mean? It means that all children are in the same classroom, in the same school. It means learning, real learning opportunity for groups who have traditionally been excluded, not only children with disabilities, but speakers of minority languages too. So what happens here is, the parents generally, they do not like their children to be associated with the term disability. So they send them to the mainstream school to see that they get education. But many of these children, once they're in the mainstream school, they find it very difficult to academically adjust to the learning that is happening there, and also to the social and the peer groups. And so they are left behind, and it also affects their emotional, it affects them emotionally too. So what we are trying to do, that is the fraternity of special educators, we are trying to help the school population, that is the teachers, the students, the school itself, and the parents, to understand the need for this inclusion, so that the child also is included with the other children and they are mainstreamed in the regular schools. So this inclusion is gaining a lot of importance, and so people are talking about inclusion, and I hope it becomes a part of the education system. So at this point, I think I'll just move on. This was a brief introduction about my journey into learning this. So children with learning disabilities. Swati, can you just show this first slide, please? Swati, can you show the first slide?
It's come on, Ashwini.
Oh, okay.
Ma'am, I'm
sorry.
showing it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not able to see it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Most of you have heard of the term disability. So what does disability mean? Disability is a physical, it can be mental, it can be cognitive or developmental condition that impairs and interferes with the person's ability to do certain tasks or actions or participate in daily activities. So children with learning disability, sometimes they do not want to come to school because they're not able to physically do it, or their mental well-being doesn't allow them to come. So this is something that we have to deal constantly with. We have several types of disabilities, and today in particular, I'm only talking about children with learning disability. Learning disability is also known as LD. It's the abbreviation for learning disability, and it's gaining a lot of awareness in today's world. A lot of research has been done to understand.
Excuse me, ma'am. Could you please put it on the slide mode? Not able to see the screen properly. Sorry for interruption. Kindly put it on slide mode.
You're asking Swati or you're asking me?
It's on.
Ma'am,
I mean,
it's visible. It's visible,
It's
ma'am.
it's,
visible.
yes, to all of us, yeah.
Yes, it's visible to all, Swati.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you. So shall I go on?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
A lot of research has been done to understand or decipher this complex neurological interaction that happens in the brain. And this in turn will help us to understand the learning process. A few decades ago, this concept of disability did not have a name. And so children with learning difficulties were labeled as stupid, dumb, retarded. And, it didn't really, I mean, these children really found it very difficult to deal with names like that. But nowadays, but thanks to the support system and the alternate way of teaching, learning disability is now being seen in a different light. So LD is also a vast topic of discussion. And here I would just like to touch upon certain perceptions of LD, like the cause of LD, the different categories of LD, a typical child's profile with LD, and the accommodations that are provided. So according to statistics, 15 to 20% of the school population have LD, or 1 in 5 students on an average suffers from learning disability. Swati, slide 2, please. Here you see in this particular slide, a whole lot of students, but one particular child has LD. So, yeah, thank you. The term LD was introduced in the year 1963 by Samuel Kirk, but a lot of research went into it, and there are a lot of scientists who are doing a whole lot of research. And finally, finally it was Henshelwood, one of the scientists, who came with a lot of accommodations and modifications that that the school should provide for children with learning difficulties. So now what is LD? I mean, it's a huge thing, and many of us don't understand what LD is. Swati, slide 3, please. LD is a neurological disorder, and it involves how the brain processes information. It is not a disease. So many of them feel that LD is a disease, but it is not a disease at all. It is a lifelong condition, and there is no cure for it, unfortunately. So we have a whole lot of parents, many of them coming to us, asking us, when will my child be okay? When will this LD go away? But unfortunately, it's very sad to tell them that it is a lifelong thing and there's no cure for it. So we tell them that with a lot of accommodation and remediations, which can be done at the school level and at home, it can be managed very well. So children learn to manage the LD and get on with life. So there is no cure at all. This LD affects the ability to read and write, speak, compute math, and impair the socialization skills. As a result, even if the child is smart and having an over average IQ, his grades in certain academic areas may not be good. In fact, he may not do well at all. He or she may not do well at all. It is not because of the IQ, but it is because these children, they learn differently. They're not dumb or lazy, but their learning curve is entirely different from that of the so-called normal children. So what learning means, the way the brain processes information. Here, children with difficulties, they learn differently from other students because the information that is taken into their brain can get stuck or lost while traveling there. So we also say that their brains are wired differently, or the circuits in the brain may not be functioning properly. So it interferes with the learning process. LD, you can compare it like you can compare it to a bulb. Sometimes the bulb just goes off. So it may be because there's some the way it's wired is not okay, so it's not able to light up. So in the same way, even learning doesn't light up in their brain because the wires are not connected properly in their brain, maybe. So this happens, and LD can affect more than one area of development. Let me just give you briefly information about the information processing that happens in the brain. Generally, the sense organs in our body, they take in information, and this information is sent to the brain, and the brain processes it and makes sense of what the information is. Next, the information is stored in the brain and it is retrieved whenever required. The brain then will send out the messages to the nerves or the muscles. So this is the normal functioning of the brain. But if there is any gap or problem in one of the areas, then it can result in learning difficulties. Now, I would like to tell you the difference between IQ and LD. So how are IQ and LD connected? IQ, as you know, is the intelligent quotient, and it is the way of measuring the intelligence of a person. So children with LD have average to above average intelligence, but learning difficulty comes in their way of performance. So learning difficulty means the way the brain processes information. Their IQs are okay, but it's only the brain processing information, which impairs their learning process. So IQ is quite high and above average. Since their IQs are very above average or average, they are aware of the problems that they feel, and our children feel very isolated because they have a lot of social anxiety and they worry about their fear rejection. So, we feel very bad because they're able to understand, but at the same time, they're not able to do anything much about it. Then let us see the causes of LD. LD can be either hereditary, it can be a nutritional deficiency, it can also be economic deprivation, problems during pregnancy, birth trauma, child abuse, lead poisoning. Sometimes there's no specific cause for LD. So it can be any one of them or neither of them. Now, I will go on to the profile of a child with LD. When I talk of profile of a child with LD, you know that children have a lot of difficulties. So there are different difficulties that I'm just listing out. And the child can come with one difficulty or it can be a cocktail of difficulties. So there is no end to the difficulties that these children suffer. So the first one that I'm talking to you is about the academic learning problems. Happens with 99% of the children. They have a lot of problems with the academic area, especially reading is a very common deficit area. And other skills like reading comprehension, written expression, spelling, mathematics, calculation, behavior, all that comes into this, and they have problems with it. So this first one that I'm talking is about the academic learning problem. Then we have the language disorder. This is a communication disorder. Here, the children with communication disorder, they can be of two types. They can be either with receptive language disorder or expressive language disorder. But most of them, they struggle with written language, spoken language, or both sometimes. So when I talk about receptive language disorder, the child has trouble understanding the word or words that he or she hears and reads. So for them, hearing sounds doesn't make any sense. They do not have any problems with their hearing or their ear. It is only the language disorder. So the sounds that this word makes or the letters that I use, all this comes under the receptive language disorder. Because of the receptive language disorder, expressive language disorder is also impaired. So the child has trouble speaking with others or expressing their thoughts and feelings. So both are so interconnected. If you have one, the other one also gets impaired. So I had a student who was almost 16 years of age when he came to my class. He had severe he had severe expressive language disorder, not so much of receptive language. He could understand what was going on, but when it came to talking, he would just talk in monosyllables, sometimes one or two words at a time, with no syntax. So it was very difficult to understand what he was trying to express. With a lot of remediations and the other things that happened at the school level, he was able to come out and express himself a little bit better by the time he was leaving the school. So at that point, he could talk to us in a couple of sentences, which made sense. So, it's very difficult if you have this receptive and expressive language disorder, because the child is not able to express what they want or understand what is happening in the class. Then we have another disorder known as the perceptual disorder. So this perceptual disorder is a cognitive disorder, and it impairs the ability to perceive nature of objects or concept through the use of sense organs. Well, it's a very if I can just give you examples to understand this particular perceptual disorder. Now, a child understands, when you draw an elephant on the board, he understands that it is an elephant. But there are some children who can mistake the elephant to be a dog or some other animal. They're not able to connect the word elephant with the drawing. So, the perceptual disorder comes into play. They're not able to perceive what is happening. They're not able to understand the difference between between the word and the picture that is there. This perceptual disorder is very important. Perceptual or the way you perceive nature is very important for my subject, that is painting, that I used to teach these children. Because if you have perceptual disorder, you're not able to imagine things, or you're not able to connect the dots, and you have a lot of visual disorder and also auditory disorders that come into play. I will just give you an example. Can you just show the slide 4, Swati? In the slide 4, are you able to see it?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
In this slide, you see that I have given a drawing on one side and the other side is completely blank. So this was the exercise that I had given to the students. I asked them to perceive whatever is there, use their imagination, and understand whatever they can from what they see and continue that drawing, or use the imagination and draw what they can, so that there is a connection between what they draw and what I have drawn. So this becomes, many of them do not have this kind of a ability to perceive sometimes. So this is known as a perceptual disorder, and it's a very important thing that children should perceive nature of objects or the concept that they see. So we find this in a lot of children. Then we have this metacognitive deficit or defect. This is reflective thinking skills, how a child can think about a particular problem, topic, or a statement. So metacognitive is nothing but thinking skills. Many of them don't have it, so it's also a disability. Then the most important one is the socio-emotional difficulties. Socio-emotional difficulties, here you have negative feeling of self-worthy, difficulty in interacting with peers, teachers, parents, or strangers. They lack the subtle skills to recognize cues necessary for social interaction, and so they find it very difficult. Socio-emotional difficulties we find in 99% of our students. They can manifest in different ways. So most of them, they feel very depressed, and because of the socio-emotional difficulty, it also leads to their behavioral problem. Everything is so interlinked to this that they behave so badly in class. So earlier on, I was telling you that when I joined the school, I was very worried about the behavioral problem. It is all to do with the socio-emotional difficulties. In fact, for instance, I had a student, and he was, what shall I say? He was pretty good. I mean, he had a very good IQ and his skills were good, but he had this, he just wanted to trouble other students. So whenever he would see some children approaching him, he would put out his leg. So as a result, they would trip on him and fall down, and he would have a laugh. So these are some of the socio-emotional difficulty. I don't think he even wanted to do it, but then his behavioral problem comes in the way, and so the emotions take over, and this is what happens. So it's a huge thing. We find a lot of fights in the class. We find so many things, which are very difficult to manage with these children. But somehow we have to make them understand that it is not correct for them to give in to their emotional difficulties and behave the way they are. So we do a lot of therapy with them with all this. We have a counselor to whom we send our children, and they're counseled there. Then, of course, we have problems with memory. Memory is the way to recall things, whatever they have learned. So it is the power of the mind to store past experience of a learning and utilize them by reproducing them at a later stage. A child with learning difficulty may frequently forget spelling word, math, fact, and directions. So this is with memory, and again, we have a lot of remediation that we do to increase the memory power with these students. And I won't go into all that because it's a long subject. I mean, it'll take a long time. Then the motor difficulties, it can be fine motor or gross motor skills that are impaired. And because of the motor skills being impaired, the child can become clumsy, or it can have sloppy handwriting, or very uncoordinated, the way they walk. So there are a lot of motor difficulties that we see in children, and we try to help them out with it. Another area that we always have is this attention and impulse control deficiency. So this is also a part of the socio-emotional difficulties, but it's put into a different category here. And so the attention and impulsive control deficiency It is a combination of persistent problem such as difficulty in sustained attention, hyperactivity, and impulsive behavior. So when I talk of attention and impulsive control, our children with learning difficulty also have comorbidities like ADD or ADHD sometimes, or they also have autism spectrum. So generally, this attention and impulsive control deficiencies are generally seen in students with ADD and ADHD. But since it is a comorbidity, we also see it in our children with learning difficulty. So in a classroom, these children have trouble sitting and paying attention, and their sitting tolerance is not more than 10 minutes. So you can just imagine how we conduct our classes. Because, for 10 minutes, they listen to whatever is happening in the class, they're very attentive, and after that, they start to fidget, or they are having fights with their neighbor, and they're disrupting the whole class. So this behavior, this is that attention and impulsive control deficiency, uh, is more or less we see this in the classroom only, mostly in the classroom. Sometimes, of course, when they have fights, we see it. It may not be because they want to have a fight, but it is just they're not able to control their impulsive behavior. And sitting tolerance, we're trying to work with children so that we can increase the sitting tolerance to maybe 30 minutes. So what we do is generally in a class, we teach for about 10 minutes, then we give them a break of 5 minutes, then go back to teaching for another 10 minutes. So these are some of the way that we adapt to in teaching our children with difficulties. Then now I will just tell you about the categories of LD. Disabilities may not manifest in a particular category. The children may have several associated problems also. I think most of you would have heard the term dyslexia. Swati, can you put the slide 5, please? So here you see dyslexia, and I think many of you would have heard the term also dyslexia. Dyslexia is difficulty with academic learning and difficulty with language. I've already touched upon the academic learning difficulties, so that becomes dyslexia. So most of the children come to us with dyslexia, and we work with them and help them to, to learn and understand what learning is also. Then we have the second one that's known as dysgraphia. That is difficulty with learning, spelling, and comprehension. So the child might have problems with gripping a pencil and also has unreadable penmanship. So dysgraphia is also related to fine motor skills. And here the fine motor skills are compromised because they're not able to write properly. Can you show slide number 6, please? A lot of spelling mistakes in dysgraphia. You see this small sample of dysgraphia where it's very difficult to decipher what the child has written. Okay. So then we have this other one known as dyscalculia, unable to comprehend simple mathematical functions, confusion with symbols, shapes related to mathematics. So many of our children, they look at all these symbols, it just goes above their heads. They're not able to do math because all the symbols come into their mind and they don't know which one to choose. So they find it very difficult. So children with learning difficulties have a lot of problems with symbols, signs, and other things. And math is not their favorite subject. So children with dyscalculia are unable to have confusion with symbols and shapes. Then we have dyspraxia, that is difficulty in performing complex movement, including muscle movement for talking, writing, buttoning, or other tasks with fine motor skills. So dyspraxia is also known as apraxia. So it's basically with fine motor skills and the muscle movement. Then these are all the dys that I'm talking about. Then we have the dysnomia, inability to recall names of the words of common objects. Then, of course, we have the auditory discrimination and visual perceptions, which are a part of this characteristic. Here in the auditory discrimination, the child is unable, has trouble distinguishing similar sounds. Example like pig and big, or spoken words like elephant as elephant. So all that comes under auditory discrimination. And visual perceptions are inability to differentiate between similar looking numbers, letters, shapes, objects, and symbols. In an ideal situation, we need to have all these things like proper auditory, visual, and we are not have dysgraphia or dysgraphia or dyslexia. But children with LD, unfortunately, they come with one or two of these things. So working with them and helping them is what we do now. So here there are, let me talk about some of the markers that we see in children. There are some markers in children that can be indicative warning that needs to be watched carefully. There is no single indicator of LD. Unless the child manifests several warning signs consistently and the problem persists over time, then the necessary formal assessments needs to be done both at the school level and with evaluators like NIMHANS, Spastic Society, and other such agencies. So what we tell people is, or the parents, is to watch out for their children if they feel that the child has some problem. So if it continues and it's persistent, only then after the age of 5 or 6, they need to take the child for evaluation, which is done with the psychologist and maybe the school and other levels. So only then they come to know whether the child has learning difficulties or not. Sometimes children do not have any difficulties, but they might just indicate that they have some difficulty, but that is not learning difficulty. And this learning difficulty has to be assessed by by the evaluators, that is NIMHANS or Spastic Society, or by the psychologist or the psychiatrist. Now, at our school, we do a lot of remediation and accommodation. Remediations and accommodation. Remediation is how we try to teach our children. We do that scaffolding methods where we break down learning into small chunks. We do not make them learn the whole lesson. We just give them important points so they're able to understand those points and make notes for themselves. So then we also use graphic organizers, mnemonics, multisensory instruction. And also we give interventions like counseling. Then we have resource rooms and other support systems. Then we also write things known as IEP, or individualized education plan, for each and every student to help them and also help the teacher to understand the way to teach these students. So I would say that early intervention is very important with LD, since these students will be burdened with academic load later on. As they go higher up to higher classes, they're not able to perform at all because they're not able to understand. So early intervention is always very important. And the most important thing is the support of the parents and family members, especially with children with learning difficulties, because for them it is what they require from their parents, especially. And of course, the school also gives them a lot of support, and it's very crucial for the success of this program that we have for the children. Here I would like to conclude by telling you, I've given you this, what LD looks like, but I would also like to tell you that there are other famous personalities who have done so well in the society. We have Einstein, who had learning difficulties. We had Walt Disney, Thomas Alva Edison, Hans Christian Andersen, Tom Cruise, our own Abhishek Bachchan in the backyard, who also had who also has, not saying had, has learning difficulties. So in conclusion, our motto is never give up on such children. Have faith and belief in them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwini. That was really very good. Having known you for so long, I didn't know all this. And I think you are doing a remarkable job with these kids.
Thanks.
Now, in the box, chat box, there are a few questions by Uma. Uma, would you like to unmute and ask them? Uma?
Already put in, if it is okay, I can do that. Otherwise, if you want to read the question also, it is okay by
No,
me.
no, no. As you're there, I'd like you to directly ask Ashwini these questions.
Okay. Because I knew one Vrindavan school in Jayanagar near Madhavan Park.
Yes.
So I was wondering, are you referring to the same or you started something on your own?
Oh, I know I'm referring to the same. We have only one Darwin, and that is
Because it's such a coincidence. Auntie's daughter Geeta is married to my brother,
okay.
Gayatri Krishnan, right? She started it, right? After
Yeah.
She also ran the nursery school there, as you know, when Auntie Ji was alive, opposite to Kuchalamba, Kalyanman.
Right.
That's where we also stayed. So that's why it just took me back when I heard the name Vrindavan. So,
Yeah, it's the same school at that time.
okay. They've grown. I know that they've grown a lot. I know that. And then I had another question to ask. I mean, is it all only genetic, or is you think sometimes the parents interfered? This is what I've heard. I'm not very sure that an unwanted conception happens. Some of them try to abort the fetus. You think that may also be
It
affecting?
can be, it can be anything. There is no specific rule that it has to be a certain thing. It can be genetic, it can be during birth, it might be something that has gone wrong during that time that can happen, and this learning difficulties happen in the child. So, as I said, it can be any one of the problems that I had mentioned. So it can also be genetic.
Okay, thank you. And I put in some more, I don't know. Now I had to go back to the chat box, see what.
Ashwini,
And
I
I
wanted
just
to
wanted
ask
to
you a
ask
question.
you- Yeah.
You said 1 in every 5
Right.
has learning disability.
Yes.
Now, are the teachers equipped to find out in the regular school?
See, again, I was talking to you about inclusion, okay?
Right.
So now, we're trying to get the teachers to understand the difficulties that these children have. So, when they join the mainstream school, it is very difficult, but because many of the teachers, I can't really blame any of the teachers, the classrooms are so vast. There are 40 to 50 students in one class. So the teacher has no resource to such learning, and they find it very difficult to intervene with children with learning difficulties. So what happens is they're left behind, and because of all the difficulties they face, they're not able to perform well in the academics. And the school, what they do normally is they'll keep back these children, or they fail them, or give them a TC and tell them to go. So again, their their emotional they get very impacted because they're being sent out of school, and emotionally, they're not able to control themselves. So all these, there are so many problems that happens when they're in the mainstream school. But we still want them to be in the mainstream school because they should be with other children, and the other children should learn to accept our children, because they should understand. But slowly it is happening, and the fraternity of our learning disability teachers are trying to do something about it, and a lot of awareness is being created. And hopefully, we'll reach a point where the teacher understands what the child requires. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question, two questions.
Yeah.
Janaki Ram.
Yeah.
I want to know what character qualities are required in a teacher to teach the children, and how did you take up that profession?
It is a tough profession. Well, first thing you require is a lot of patience with these children. And secondly, you have to understand them. There's no point getting irritated with these children because it's not because they want to do something and disrupt the class or their behavior is so bad. It is just that, as I said, it is something that just triggers in their brain and they just play up with whatever they want to do. So patience is another very important thing. And we have special courses for us where we learn about this particular difficulty. There are several things to be learned, and we go through 1.5 years of rigorous training.
Oh,
And
1.5 years training.
yes, yes. So, and then we also we also join the school for some time and teach. So the others will be observing how we teach. So a lot of things that go into it um, to learn about learning disability. But at the end of it, we feel so happy to be with them.
Very, very noble work. And are we up to date? Are we current to what is happening in Europe or USA and advanced countries?
Actually, I can say that in India, we are doing quite a lot of work. Not that I'm saying that they're not doing elsewhere. When I compare US and India, I think India is doing much better as far as
Oh, very glad to know.
yes, yes, yes.
In what way?
Because here, I mean, even there you have classes, and of course, their classes are much smaller and all that. But the accommodations and the remediations that we do here, which is very, very important for such children, is on a different level.
Thank you.
But there are some schools which are also doing the integration, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
Bethany Special School is there and Sophia School. So
Yeah,
they're trying to integrate, right?
No, these are all special schools only for children like,
Yeah.
learning, specific learning deficiencies or difficulties. Yes,
Yes.
they do integrate. That is what I'm talking about, inclusion, where you integrate
Inclusion.
these students into the mainstream school,
Yes.
and the teachers there need to be updated about the differential learning methods and help
Yes.
students to understand.
Yeah. Because what I've heard from Sophia School, where one of my very old friend, Mrs. Sengupta, used to teach the baking, cooking, and all that. She was
Yeah,
saying
we
those
do
who are
all
really
that.
interested. They're
Yeah.
really interested to do something and get some joy when something get to eat, they get to taste, and the joy she's saying that
We do all
they're
that in
really-
our school because it's a part of the curriculum, home science, and
Yeah.
they come out with such nice, very nice food that they can make. So
Mhm.
some hidden talents are also brought out, and they feel very happy to
Yeah.
show
Yeah.
their talents also. So the two-way
For
process.
some appreciation, no?
Yes.
I have a question which may be slightly outside the scope of your talk. I had a classmate who was very brilliant along with me, but when he reached SSLC, he started developing learning difficulties. It's slightly outside the scope of your talk. I think learning difficulties of children. So at adolescent, he was very bright boy. He was the first in the class and all that. When he reached fourth form, fifth form, suddenly he started learning difficulties in learning. So it can appear at any stage, is it?
Yeah, it can. It depends. There might be some triggers that might have happened maybe in his family or with his peers or in the school. As I was telling you, this socio-emotional thing is a huge thing for these children. So triggers can happen anywhere at any time. So it also will impair their learning ways and how they learn, and they start facing this. Learning difficulty is nothing but how the brain processes the information. So it can happen anywhere, anytime.
Thank
So,
you.
Do they at all regret supposing they make something wrong and then you point out? Do they get the feeling that they did something wrong and do they come and like hug and then apologize that sorry I did it?
not always, it depends from child to child. Yes, some of them are very loving, they want you, especially their teachers, they're very, very fond. In fact, all my students are all 17 to 18 years old. They even to this day, they'll come and meet us and greet us.
Yeah.
So it's very nice to see them. So they're very
Yeah.
affectionate, and
Yeah.
I've had people asking whether these children are different. So I just don't understand how they don't look different. They look normal like any other child. But it is
Yes.
only the way they function differently. As I said, their IQs are so high, they can function very well, but because of their learning difficulties, they're not able to do.
Because we had a boy, Kumar, our immediate neighbor of a doctor's son. And every time he saw me or my daughters, he would just come and hug them so tightly that, it used to be a little bit difficult for them to breathe also, my second daughter especially. She was small. And I'm sure he was very fond of her because there were only two boys in the family. So I don't know, it must have been a sisterly attitude towards her, but he used to hug us so much, so tightly, she used to start crying. To leave me, leave me.
No, they're very, very
So,
very demonstrative, some of them.
yeah. And very, very powerful hugs, I should say, stronghold.
Yes. There's another question. Someone wants to ask something.
Thank you.
Yes, Ashwini, I have a question. Now, just taking forward what was said earlier, that one was, of course, how does India stand vis-a-vis the rest of the world, especially the West, in this? And in the context of us being this being a satsang, my first thought, the reaction to that question was that it may not be really out of topic from an ancient Indian wisdom context to consider the spiritual aspect of why people turn out in this manner. And if we did have people who, with that kind of awareness, who worked research in this area, probably we can really become world leaders in finding solutions to even rectify such problems with, people, children of this nature.
Yeah, actually, a lot of, as I said, there's a lot of work being done in this particular field, especially because, we are seeing earlier there were not too many children, or we did not understand there was this difficulty. So we did not identify these children as children with learning difficulty. But now, because of the awareness that is there, a lot of research is being done. And yes, even at your level, at the Ancient School of Wisdom, maybe you can just do some research to find out how they were dealing with it earlier. That will be a good topic to do something.
I believe that even areas like hypnosis, past life regression, and even things like, you have, what was that again? I think somebody might be able to help me out. That drawing, what drawing was that? Where you, like kind of, doodling, the auto doodling kind of thing, exercises, they can actually get people at a subconscious level to remap.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, especially I teach drawing and painting. I let them doodle in class because that brings out whatever the innate feelings that they have. So that's the way of understanding. First of all, we need to understand our children. Academics can always be on the back burner because we need to have the child to integrate into the society more than academics. I mean, yes, academics is very important to integrate, but the behavior problems also come into play, right? So with that kind of a behavior, no one wants them in the society. So there are different things that we are doing at the same time, bringing in academics, bringing in this kind of behavioral issues to be modified. So there's a whole range of things that we do. So it's not one or two things. Yeah, and doodling is very important so we understand what the child is going through. I had this child who joined the NID, that is National Institute of Drawing, and he would constantly doodle in my class. So there would be a time when I would ask him, please stop doodling and listen to what I'm saying. But the way he was learning is only through doodles.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ashwini, do you have an IEP that you can share with us?
IEPs are, no, I'm sorry, because IEPs are something that, it's a school property and we generally do not share IEPs with others. But yes, we do write IEPs. There's a methodology of writing that I can share, but not a proper IEP.
Yeah, but can you share the methodology of the IEP?
Yeah, that I can share with you. You can take my email address and then send it to me. I mean, ask me what you want exactly. So yeah, that I could help you out with.
Thanks. Thanks.
Good. I'm happy Purnima was able to join because I invited her, as I said earlier, because she's also been in this field for many years.
Okay.
So that's why I wanted her to attend to this, Ashwini. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Ashwini, I'm actually a special educator.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have been in this field for the past 47 years.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah. So I deal with autistic children
okay.
and learning differently. We call them as learning differently rather than learning disabled.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I just thought of sharing
Dive.
some things with you.
Okay, I get it. But you know, it is usually the school property, so we're not supposed to be sharing it. But yeah, I think you must be knowing the usual way of writing the IEPs and
Yeah, I do know that. That is why I just thought that if you have an IEP that you could share, which is very generalized,
okay.
you know, it would help me in understanding how you share your IEPs.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Good. Any other questions?
Excuse me, ma'am. You told me that the evaluation tools are very much personal, belongs to your institution.
Yeah.
May I know where we can get these tools, how to access these tools? Because in order to understand the children's behavior, we
Okay.
need to assess the kids. I'm also a teacher, so if you can let me know.
See, for you all to assess, I think you don't you have your own school team of teachers, and you must be having your own school. I mean, you might be referring all these cases to NIMANS or other places. So they do a lot of these assessments. So I think you should contact them, and even at the school level that they can do the assessment. It's
Just
between the teacher. Sorry?
no, sorry, ma'am. Please continue. I can add later.
No, it's between, that assessments are generally done between the teacher, the school, and the counselors and the parents also, and also with external agencies. So you have to get all the reports, everything from other agencies. So that is what I was telling you about.
I'm based in Kerala, so it is
Okay.
difficult for me to get access with NIMHANS. So anything, which is available online, which we can pay and get the tools, simple, very simple tools to assess the children's learning difficulties. If something is there, if you can refer, that would be very much helpful for me, the teacher.
I will find out about it because I'm not aware of it. So I mean, I know that there are, but I will find out and let you know.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
May I just say a few things over here, Ashwini?
Yes.
Okay. This lady who is in Kerala,
Yeah.
if the mother is the best tool, actually, I don't know your name. Can you just repeat your name, please?
Archana.
Archana. Archana, if you've seen some red flags in your child,
Okay.
you are the best tool to assess that, yes, my child has a problem. Then you get out to reach out to any other professional, either in Bangalore or any other city in India. But you as a mom have to recognize that there is a problem with my child.
Yeah, that is
I need to
exactly.
reach out to somebody.
Okay.
Then you set forth your path.
I think I just talked about that part of it. First and foremost, you have to see the behavior of the child. If you feel that it's a persistent kind of behavior that the child has, and you feel that there are some red flags, then all this should be done. And also, the age of the child is very important because when the child is young, they tend to do these things. They may not be having any learning difficulties. It's only as the child grows older, maybe at the age of 5 to 7, you need to really look for all the red flags in the child. And then assessment should be done. If there is a repetitive thing that's happening, then of course assessment should be done.
How old is your child, Ashwini?
Sorry?
No, how old is that child?
I don't know. You mean Archana's?
Archana.
I have no idea.
Sorry, ma'am, could you please repeat once again?
No, I was saying, like I said earlier, how old is the child that you're talking about?
These are group of children who come between the age group of 2 and 10 years.
See, 2 is too early for any interventions to be done.
Yeah, I know, ma'am. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So after 5 years or 7 years is better. If you see this kind of a repetitive behavior, you find that they're not able to understand the sounds and how they change the letters and, you know, all the phonetics and all that, they're not able to understand or do anything with it. And you see that by giving them exercises and helping them, they're not able to do anything much with it, and it's a repetitive thing. Only then you need to do a lot of assessment. So you can talk to, first of all, you can go to the school, talk to the teacher, see what is happening with the child, see whether all this is happening in school, whether the academics are not being done in the way that he or she should be doing it. Then, you know, if you feel that there are red flags, only then you need to take help from the outside agencies.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Any more questions? Has anyone any questions?
I
Yes,
don't have a
Kashmira?
question. I don't have a question, but I just have an observation. Like I know that in America, they have tried to streamline these kids into regular schools because they feel that, yeah, that's a very good adjustment for both the child who is learning disabled. But I've also seen it from the teacher's point of view. Even if they have a small class, like usually it's 20, 30
Yeah.
kids, it is nearly impossible for that teacher. Because
Yes.
because these children need that, like you said, 10 minutes, you teach them, then let them go, then you start again. But what happens to the rest of the 29 kids then? So I feel that it's a good idea if they're borderline to merge them in. But if they are difficult kids, they should have another place that they can be sent to or be taken care of. Otherwise, it's a major burden on the teacher and the school.
Yes, it
That's
is, but we have resource rooms. So many of the schools have resource rooms where the special educator is also there. So children, when they're integrated, like you were saying, if they have this something known as differential learning, and these children are sent to the resource room where the special educator takes over and they help them with this differential type of learning to get integrated into with the other children. Of course, there will be difficulties. I'm not saying it'll be anything different because they do have this learning problem. So, you know, at the end of it all, it's all up to the society, up to the school, up to the teachers, how they try to integrate such children into a mainstream class. It is difficult in a mainstream school, but we're trying to achieve that.
May I just say it's a very derogatory term, the learning disabled. We call it as learning differently.
There are different terms for it, disabled differently. So, you know, I mean, one day they say it's disability, then they say, no, you shouldn't use disability, use it as different. So, you know, but the crux of it is that they have learning difficulties.
We call it as learning differently, not learning disabled, not learning difficulty.
Right, any other questions, suggestions, feedback, anything? Okay, if we don't have anything, then I request Ramesh to propose a vote of thanks. and end with the Loka Samasta, with special prayers going out to these children that she spoke about.
Right, Sajani.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just going to add something over there. I will during the acknowledgement. But Ashwini ji, thank you so much for speaking today. I think it kind of opened another window in our world from the School of Ancient Wisdom. Well, I mean, just to summarize what you were saying, you spoke about children with learning disabilities, put in the context of your life, and you mentioned that the LD
We
can
don't
is
use
like,
the term disability, we use the term as learning differently, please.
yes, Purnimaji, I'm going to come to that now. I'm only summarizing what she said. I think that is important that we open our hearts out and really get the context, because ultimately I understand your sensitivity, because you must have come across many people who would have discriminated against or demeaned these souls who come in the form of these children, and place them in a place where they're given less love. But the idea is to address it, whatever be the name that we call them. The idea is to address it in a collective manner, as people who are
The
kind to
term
the
is
others.
very important. The term is very important.
I understand. I understand your context. So I'm just stitching that in. But first, I'm going to summarize what Ashwini ji had said. So basically, this is a summary. It is not a I will come to that terminology also. But I would not want to get stuck to it. So I'll stitch it in. To include all of us as human beings and the efforts that we're putting in to uplift these souls, which is wonderful. And that really is the essence that I got from this. So it is lifelong, and it is being addressed much better in recent years, thankfully. Perhaps that's the reason why suddenly we might have more people in these, more children being identified as such now than ever before. And they could have, issues with speech, language processing, processing issues, convergence, etc. And the difference between IQ and LD. Now, LD children have normally average to above average intelligence, which is nice to know. It is just that one aspect of the persona may not be as complete in addressing the connection with the outside world as it is for the average child. It can be genetic, it can be maybe because of child abuse or lead poisoning, trauma. I could even add karma to that from a spiritual perspective. And academic learning problems like reading, comprehension, language disorders, spelling, memory, motor difficulties. And it might even come with comorbidities like attention deficit disorder, autism, or something in that spectrum. And also you mentioned that there are exercises to alleviate these problems, and in your school you do identify and put the child or the young adult through these exercises to support them in any way that you can. And there are no single symptoms of LD, which is something that we must be alert to. That sometimes it might go unnoticed, but it is only with repeated indications that tests can be performed and the LD status assessed in probably a place like NIMHANS or the Spastic Society. So at your school, you do a lot of remedial measures, right from mnemonics, counseling, individualized education, and so on. But the most important aspect is support of parents and family members. And you also mentioned some famous LD personalities like Einstein, Walt Disney, and Abhishek Bachchan, who I never knew was, falling into that category. And I think the essence behind what you said was have faith and belief. And really, I mean, if you, I believe this is what my son used to study in a Waldorf school before we shifted our location. And in that Waldorf school, we had children also. We also had children with autism, somewhere on the autism spectrum and Down syndrome. And I observed that I was also able to get along well with these children, the specially able children, you can call it that. But I never looked down upon them. And in fact, some of my friends, Satsang friends, and the wise people would tell me that and also I've read elsewhere that such souls come to earth in this manner because one, they may not want to interact so much. Their karmic path may not require them to interact so much with the outside world. And secondly, by being who they are, they also support us to become better people. And that is the essence. And also, and by being better people, if you become more loving and kind towards each other and to all the different, variations of what it is to be a human being, that is the essence behind why we are here on earth and how we gradually move towards
Waldorf is a very good way of learning. I don't know if you know this, Ramesh. I'm glad that your children are going to the Waldorf schools.
Yes, it is a wonderful way. Yes. So the idea is that
Do you know the backdrop of how Waldorf teaches children?
I think the essence basically is it started with Rudolf Steiner, who
Yeah,
came down
Steiner.
to India.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he in conjunction with Madame Blavatsky's methods and Jiddu Krishnamurti, he went back and wrote his own system, anthroposophy. It's
Yeah.
not just about education, but also includes.
It's a fantastic way of learning. I'm glad your children are there.
Yeah, my son was there, and I was also exposed to it. But now, because we moved away to North Bangalore, I have not been able to put him in that kind of
Yeah, even in
continuous
Bangalore,
education.
we have enough Waldorf schools, Ramesh.
Yeah, I know that, but not enough to be easily accessible to different areas. Some areas have them. But the bottom line is this: I think if we do not get too stuck with the terminologies, but really look at the essence behind what is being done here, I really hats off to all of you for the kindness and compassion that you have towards children with different abilities. And for that, really, I think the essence behind that is a big thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. If you just give me a moment, I said someone at the door, I just have to open the door. Just give me a moment, please.
Right, till he opens the door. Thank you, everyone. And we hope to see you every week at our Thursday satsangs. Okay, back to you, Ramesh.
Right. So on that note, hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, in an attitude of gratitude, let us all sit straight with our back, neck, and head aligned. Close our eyes. Take a deep breath. Let go. Let us all collectively, as souls who are all interconnected, pray for those communities around us that need support in every way. Let us send our love and compassion out to the world at large in these pandemic times, in these times of wars. Let us become cheerful and better and more uplifting each day and become better people every day as we do this. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Brahmarpanamastu.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. And
Thank you.
Ashwini, we look forward to seeing you at the school shortly. Have a great holiday.
Thank
She's
you.
going on a holiday and then again to the US. So all the best.
Thank you so
Saturday-
much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank
And
you, Ashwini. Bon voyage, safe landing. Come back
yes.
safe
Thank
and
you.
fast.
Okay.
Okay. So
Nice speaking to you.
we also have the Bhagavad Gita every Saturday. And can you show us the next Thursday's poster, please? Okay, I don't think. Yeah, the next Thursday's poster. That's the Bhagavad Gita poster.
No, ma'am, this is Dharma and Pragya.
Okay. This is Dharma and Pragya. Okay. So we have this. Please join us for this next Thursday. And if you know of any speakers who would like to speak on this platform, kindly let us know and we will invite them.
Okay.
So thank you, everyone. Good night and all the best. Thank you, Ashwini, once again.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Shine on.